Okay, welcome to our final video for Sociology 323. Brother Meeker, hello. Hope you're having a good time in Africa and enjoying your experience there. This is my wife Lindsay and Danny, and we're going to discuss what I've learned in this class about my adopted ethnicity, that of the Hispanics. To start out, Lindsay's given me 3 questions, and we'll talk about those. First off, Hispanic refers to people from which countries? What percentage of Hispanics are legally in the United States? And what do you think the U.S. should do about immigration? Well, Lindsay, these 3 are all really good questions. I think they really encompass a lot of the issues that the Hispanic Americans are currently facing. To start out with, Hispanic refers to people from most Latin countries. A lot of people, I think, have this misconception that Hispanic refers to Mexican Americans, which there's a lot of Hispanic Americans in the United States that are from Mexico, but there's also a lot, and you can't say Latin Americans because there's other Latin countries like Brazil, who speak Portuguese, which is a Latin-based language as well, but Hispanic refers to also people from Puerto Rico, people from Dominican Republic, Cuba. It encompasses a lot of people, which there's people from each and every one of these countries has at one time immigrated to the United States. So I hope that answers that question pretty good. Mm-hmm. This next question, what percentage of Hispanics are legally in the U.S.? I think this question probably comes from one part on the website where there was a common misconception that a lot of people have that all Hispanic Americans in the United States are here legally. None such is the case. I think there's a large percentage, and there's because of certain things that have happened with jobs and different things that happen with border control, a lot of people have this idea that a lot are here illegally. There is a large portion that are, but there's also a major majority that are here trying to live the American dream, trying to assimilate into our society and become good participating citizens of the United States. Mm-hmm. Does that answer that question? Okay. The last question, what do I think should be done about immigration? Really good question. I think this one is one that's really, currently facing our current administration, and it's being debated on all different sides. I don't know if amnesty for 11 million people is the answer. I think a lot of our ancestors are immigrants, and that's the argument that a lot of these immigrants are making. It's like, well, that's true. This nation was built from a lot of different people, but those immigrants had to work really hard to get here and to become citizens. And I think granting amnesty to 11 million people overnight isn't the answer. I think these people need to put forth some effort to become citizens of this nation and show that they want to participate in the system. If they're going to take advantage of it, whether it's committing crimes or in different various forms, I don't think that should be allowed. There shouldn't be a very high tolerance for that type of thing. Instead, we should recognize that this country is a melting pot. We all come from different areas, and that's the beauty of it, and that they should be welcomed in. But they should maybe not take the 10 years that it currently takes to become a citizen, but maybe something shorter, where they're still putting forth the effort and showing they want to become a citizen of the United States. I'm going to flip over to our website real quick, to my website, and we're going to talk about a few of these things. Let me teach a little more. You've already had a chance to look at these things, but let's start off talking about a few of to go over the human variation, some of the different things that Hispanic Americans face. We've talked already about a few of these misconceptions, but a lot of them, I think, in the labor force, especially in agriculture, is a misconception that there's a lot of movies you see where there's a guy pulling up to the 7-Eleven or the Home Depot saying, "I need 3 or 4 guys," and they jump in the back of his truck, and he pays them dirt poor wages to do hard labor work. That's something that unfortunately happens quite a bit. It's a misconception that they're all capable of this kind of work, or that they're all
want to do this kind of work.
They want to do it, yeah. And there's that, and I think what's some other misconceptions that you think that Hispanic Americans have? What about like the teen girls, promiscuous, lots of babies?
I think that, I work with a Hispanic that is Catholic, but I've always assumed that the majority of them follow that same belief.
That's a good example, yeah.
That they are all hardworking, I believe. She's a very hard worker, and I think that's a positive belief that they're hard workers.
You bet.
I don't know.
That's really good examples, yeah.
That they don't want to learn the language. I see a lot of people come into the bank and they have been here for many years, but they refuse to learn English, and that's something that I struggle with.
That is a challenge. That if and personally, my views as well, that like in order to become a good participating member of a society, you need to assimilate to that culture, learn to speak that language. But that doesn't mean that they need to give up their heritage and their tradition. That Catholic tradition has been in a lot of Hispanic countries for a long time. And there's certain things that they need to hold on to and recognize and be able to teach their children. But also at the same time, in order to become, that's going to ease that transition if they're going to put forth the effort to learn English and do those kind of things.
Yeah.
From there, let's kind of go in and talk about a few of the ethnic conflicts. What are some of the ethnic conflicts when you think of, whether it's Mexican Americans or just Hispanic Americans in general?
Like in politics right now?
Just any conflict that's happened in the past. There's some other examples, some different ethnicities that we've talked about in the class with, the segregation and civil rights movements with the blacks, African Americans. Is there anything specifically that comes to your mind when you think of Hispanic Americans?
The first thing that comes to mind is like them fighting for the same rights that we have and not being citizens, like getting driver's licenses in California and wanting to vote, and just that kind of thing where they're still not yet citizens and they still want those same things that we have.
That's a conflict that they're currently facing. It's a really good example. So maybe some more historical points that I could touch on maybe that's currently happening still along with what you're saying is like in agriculture with jobs, bad working conditions, bad wages. That's a conflict that they've been fighting for a long time. And there's people like Cesar Chavez that have, put forth a lot of time and effort into, working towards that. He was kind of the Martin Luther King of the Hispanic Americans and kind of fought for the same thing. Another one that I always like to touch on is the LA riots. I know your family is from California. Your parents were there at the time. That was a big situation that involved a lot of ethnicities, but a lot of Hispanic Americans were involved. And that was kind of the boiling point that, it reached the conflict kind of, the bubble popped, bursted per se. And it was a big struggle that happened there. Let's talk about next. Let's see what's next here. The Matrix of Domination. And as you saw here on the website, that's kind of one of the main pages here. Matrix domination is a theory that Patricia Collins introduced, and it kind of has to do with like all the different areas of an ethnicity, their race, gender, sexual orientation, just different things, and how they all work together. They're correlated. They're not separate from one another, and how they all relate. And so, housing is a big thing, especially with Hispanic Americans. Big families living in small areas, and it's hard. Those kind of conditions. It's rough. California here on the website, I talked a lot about the gang activity, Hispanic Americans, the different types of gangs and the different areas that they're in down there, and that's a big problem. But that's a lot of these people turn to this type of lifestyle because that's where they're able to kind of find people they can relate to, find people that they can find commonalities with. Let me check one more thing real quick here. What else we got to cover? Obstacles that this adopted ethnicity faces and their struggle for equality. That kind of goes back to what you were talking about. The workplace, voting, different things like that. Hispanic Americans, just because whether it's the language barrier that causes it or just these common misconceptions that people have, they do face some conflicts in that area and they do struggle in the different things. I think things are getting better. I think there is people are starting to recognize that we need to be concerned with immigration, that there needs to be change, however it be, but people need to kind of wake up and realize that there is a situation, there is a problem, and something needs to be done about it.
And not all Hispanic Americans are part of that problem.
No, yeah, there's definitely, and
I think
they're not all criminals, they're not all promiscuous, they're not all having teen pregnancies. Those things happen, and the numbers might be high, but there is a lot of people that are really good members of our society that can be, they're wanting to pay their taxes, they're wanting to participate, they're wanting to be members of this society. The last question here on the thing: can racism be eliminated? Let's first get your thoughts on that, Lindsay. What do you think racism can be? Has it been eliminated?
I don't think it has been. I think there's a lot of focus on it in the media today. I feel like they're trying to create that divide, and I think it can be eliminated. just by American people getting out there and becoming educated about really what the people around them feel and know and think. And once we really understand each other, we can help to get rid of that divide between different groups.
Absolutely. I really like what you said about understanding. I remember I heard someone quote, and I think it was a quote that when I was on my mission, another missionary saying that his mom used to say, maybe love isn't what's going to save the world, but understanding is what will.
Mm-hmm.
So many wars, so many conflicts, so many struggles are started from a lack of understanding. Here we are in this country. It's a big country. There's a lot of space, but we all have to live together. We all have to go to the same gas station, the same grocery store. We have to participate in this society. And if we don't understand each other, it's going to create a lot of problems. Racism, people judging other ethnicities, and whatever forms that may be, that's always going to be around, I think. But I think we can reach a point where we better understand one another, and that's going to eliminate a lot of this conflict, a lot of this struggle that we've talked about, specifically with Hispanic Americans as we're focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's different if you go to Montana and see how the struggle with Hispanic Americans and the native citizens of Montana, or if you go to California where they've been for a lot longer time, they've had a lot better chance to kind of assimilate and become part of the group down there. I think people better understand what is going on in there and what they need to do to get along better. But yeah, I think in order for racism to be eliminated, or at least to be drastically reduced and taken away, is an understanding. Mm-hmm. Is there any other final comments, questions, thoughts you have about what we've discussed, Hispanic Americans, the website, anything? Okay. Yes. Brother Maker, it's been a good semester. Really enjoyed the class. Take care and safe travels. We'll see ya.